Welcome to our channel, where emotions come alive through every story. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell, so you'll never miss a new story. Now sit back, close your eyes, and let the story begin.
The rooftop suite of the Golden Monarch Club shimmered in dim gold light. Cigarette smoke curled through the air, blending with the rich scent of aged whiskey and sandalwood. Across the table sat Ethan Reed, the man whispered about in both the boardrooms and the back alleys of the city. To the world, he was a financial magnate. To those who really knew, he was the shadow that made others kneel. He poured another glass of scotch, the amber liquid catching the light as he spoke, his voice low, rough, the kind that could cut through silence. "I like you. I want to try something serious." I rested my chin on my hand, smirking. "Try, huh? Then maybe we should test the chemistry first." His brow lifted slightly, eyes flicking to my lips, the faintest hint of amusement ghosting there. Before he could answer, I reached up, grabbed his collar, and pulled him toward me. Our breaths collided first. Mint and bourbon filled my senses, sharp enough to make my head spin. His lips were cool, dangerously controlled, but the heat beneath them made my pulse race. 1 heartbeat, 2, then it hit me, the nausea. I shoved him back, turned my head and gagged. The music faded under the weight of silence. Ethan froze for a second, then slowly set his glass down. He leaned forward, fingers gripping my chin just enough to make me look at him. "Well," he murmured. "Figure out the result yet?" I wiped my mouth, still catching my breath, and managed a weak laugh. "Not really. Just morning sickness." His eyes narrowed, the corners of his mouth twitching upward not kindly, but sharply, like the edge of a blade. "Morning sickness?" he repeated, voice dipped in mockery. "Are you hiding something from me, Harper Lynn?" I looked up at him, slow and deliberate, letting the silence stretch thin. "You're overthinking, Mr. Reed. I'm just allergic to dangerous men." He chuckled softly, a sound that wasn't quite laughter, the kind that made the air around us tighten instead of ease. He leaned closer until his breath brushed my ear, his voice a low murmur that carried the weight of both temptation and threat. "So you're admitting I'm dangerous?" I didn't pull away. Instead, I turned slightly, smiling at the corner of his mouth. "If you weren't, I wouldn't be this interested." Something flickered in his eyes, heat, warning, or both. For a moment we were suspended there, the tension humming between us like a live wire. Then he leaned back, his expression smooth again, calm in a way that scared me more than his temper ever could. "You're good at this, Harper," he said softly. "But remember one thing. Once I start playing, I don't stop." I lifted my glass and tapped it gently against his, meeting his gaze. "Perfect," I said with a half smile, because I've never liked losing. The light above us flickered. His drink glimmered dark red, catching the edge of the room's glow like blood and crystal. And right then, I knew this wasn't flirting anymore. This was war. To pay off the $450,000 gambling debt my father blew at an illegal casino, I signed a contract with a sketchy entertainment agency in Los Angeles called Lunastream Entertainment. Their job? To turn me into a modern dance streamer. The kind that flirts just enough to get views, but still pretends to be wholesome. The place wasn't even a real company, just a tiny studio above a vape shop, barely 6 months old, and rumor had it they didn't even have a proper business license. And the pay split? 90% for the company, 10% for me. On top of that, they deducted every imaginable fee. Training fees, branding fees, platform maintenance fees. If they could have charged for the air I breathed, they probably would have. Honestly, I thought my life had hit rock bottom. But I kept smiling, kept dancing, a perfectly programmed doll, grinding through an endless wave of sleazy comments. Until one night, a level 60 VIP entered my live chat. And the crazy part? He'd topped up from level 1 to 60 in a single live stream. The chat went insane. Bro's burning cash faster than a lighter. Who's this sugar daddy? Drop your Insta, king. Bet it's a scammer flexing fake coins. Refund incoming. I forced a smile, kept dancing. But somewhere deep down, I thought, if this guy's for real, I might actually marry him. The next night I got a private message. Hi, could we meet in person sometime? I rolled my eyes and tossed his ID straight into my polite creeps list. The regulars who always flirted but never dared to cross the line. So I replied casually, sorry, company policy. No in-person meetups. Feel free to chat here though. He didn't respond. But the next day, right on schedule, he came back and dropped a donation package big enough to cover my rent for 3 months. Then his username changed. Ethan Reed, CEO, Lunastream Entertainment. I nearly spit my coffee all over my monitor. So the mysterious sugar daddy level 60 was my boss. Perfect. No escape now. But I wasn't about to show up looking like some desperate gold digger, so I made sure I looked terrible. Oversized t-shirt, baggy shorts, messy ponytail, $3 flip-flops. If there was a Do Not Date award, I was about to win it. Halfway there, the flip-flop strap broke. I had to pinch it between my toes like a crab just to keep walking. When I finally reached the coffee shop, I texted him. Hey boss, where are you? He replied instantly. The one squatting by the curb, smoking. I looked up. Through a faint cloud of smoke, I saw him. A man in a black tank top, sharp jawline, strong forearms, and a silver earring catching the light. He crushed his cigarette under one hand, the other resting on his knee. Those dark eyes lifted toward me, calm, assessing, magnetic. What the hell? I'd imagined a 50-year-old balding guy with a beer belly. Instead, he was late 20s, lean, and way too good-looking. All I could think was, is it too late to run home and change? But before I could, he stood up, gaze locked on me. I froze, then instinctively stepped toward him. Snap. The other foot-flop broke. Silence. My toes clenched tighter around the broken sandal. If I grip hard enough, I thought, maybe I can build a castle with this level of determination. He stared at me for a moment, then smirked and walked away. I stood there, one shoe short, face burning. Just like that, I knew. My love life had just been stomped to death by a flip-flop. I dropped down on a chunk of concrete by the sidewalk, and the heat scorched right through my jeans. Downtown LA, in the middle of July, could probably fry an egg on the asphalt. Meanwhile, I sat there wondering whether to feel sorry for myself or just laugh at the mess my life had become. No shade, no bench, just my poor butt roasting in the name of survival. I sighed. Please don't burn yet. I still have to dance for thirsty strangers tonight. Not 5 minutes later, the man who'd walked out before I even got the chance to like him came back. He was holding a shoebox. Sorry, he said, slightly out of breath. Didn't have time to pick properly. Told my friend at the store to grab a pair for me. I opened it. Brand new Nike Air Jordans, limited edition. Fresh out that month. I just stared at them. A tiny laugh slipped out. Rich people lived in a different dimension. Meanwhile, I once spent half an hour writing a 5-star review on a $12 pair from Amazon just to get a $2 cashback coupon. I slipped the shoes on, still trying not to look impressed. When I glanced up, Ethan Reed was watching me. That same distant, unreadable look he'd had in my live stream. Quiet, detached, almost too calm. On the drive, he said nothing. He just took me to an upscale restaurant in West Hollywood. It was the fanciest place I'd ever stepped into. He stayed silent through most of dinner. I did the talking for both of us. Actually, eating might be the more accurate word. I devoured everything, even the little decorative parsley leaves. When I looked up, he was resting his chin on his hand, watching me. I nearly choked on my pasta. Oh my God, why does he have to be that kind of handsome? The dangerous kind. He leaned closer, pulled a napkin, and gently wiped the corner of my lips. His voice was low, warm with that slight rasp that sounded like trouble. "Why are you drooling?" I forced a grin. "The food's too good, I might have gotten emotional." He turned to the waiter, deadpan. "Same order again." "All of it." I blinked. "Wait, what?" No reaction. The man was an unreadable wall of calm dominance. By the time he dropped me off, the silence in the car felt heavy enough to drown in. I kept babbling about my stream, the viewers, the weird regulars, the trolls. He didn't comment, just nodded now and then, eyes fixed on the road. When the car stopped, he looked out the window at my apartment building, if you could even call it that. Peeling paint, flickering stairwell bulb, trash piled near the entrance. "You live here?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "It's cheap, quiet. I've got 3 locks on the door. Totally safe." He frowned. "It's not safe, and it's in the middle of nowhere." "I'll be fine," I said with a smile that sounded braver than it felt. "I don't need the company dorm. Let the new girls use it. I can handle myself." He didn't reply right away. Instead, he walked over to the window, pushed it open, and looked out at the dark, narrow alley behind the building. A gust of night air lifted his hair. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost careful. "If you really want to feel safe, there's another option." My heartbeat stuttered. "You mean you're moving me somewhere else?" He turned. His eyes caught the dim yellow light, deep, steady, impossible to read. "No need to move you anywhere." "Then what?" "Marry me." I froze. "Marry me," he repeated simply. "Then move into my place." The world seemed to tilt for a second. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part was too terrified to. I tried to joke. "You're serious? Marry me, a broke third-rate streamer who dances in front of a camera for tips?" He didn't even blink. "You think I'm joking?" His tone stayed calm, but there was something final in it, like a man who never said things twice. "The woman I choose has nothing to do with money or class." The old hallway light flickered, washing his face half in shadow, and right then, I realized I was in trouble not because he was dangerous, but because I might actually believe him. My mother used to say our family had a strange gift. She said it once, before she died. Just one kiss, she told me, and you'll know if someone truly loves you. She never had time to explain what true love would feel like, whether it would be warm or painful, intoxicating or terrifying. I never dared test it, not until Ethan Reed, my boss, dangerous and beautiful like a polished dagger, looked at me and said, without a trace of humor, "Marry me." I looked up and didn't blink. "You want to marry me? Fine, but we should kiss first. Make sure we're compatible." He arched an eyebrow and said nothing. I stepped forward on my toes, my heart a drum. Ethan kissed like a surgeon, eyes open, precise, examining me as if trying to map my insides. Everything about it made me want to step back. Pride, fear, embarrassment, I could feel them all. Too late. When our lips met, a jolt shot down my spine. Then my stomach turned over hard. I pushed him away and doubled over, heaving. Silence froze the room. Ethan's mouth twitched, and his face went still for a second. When I'd cleaned myself up, he reached out and cupped my chin. His voice dropped low, almost menacing. "Still nothing?" It sounded like a threat. I swallowed hard. I could have lied. I didn't. I just nauseous. "Don't worry about it." My voice came out thin. He stared at me for a long beat, as if he could see through whatever flimsy excuses I had. Then he turned away and smiled. A brittle, small thing. Nauseous, huh? I'll remember that. A few days later, I signed the papers. I married him. Not for love. For the debt. I could not carry the burden of $450,000 forever. Ethan surprised me in another way then. He said quietly, and that controlled voice of his. I don't force anyone. If one day you meet the person you truly love, I'll divorce you. It sounded like a promise. When combined with that unreadable look in his eyes, it felt more like a dare. Later, I learned more about him. Ethan wasn't just the CEO of Lunastream Entertainment. He was the second son of the Reed family, a name that meant more than boardrooms. It meant control. The Reeds had two faces, the public empire run by his older brother, and the private enforcement that kept the family's business clean and quiet. Ethan handled the latter. I asked him once why he picked me in a world full of prettier, cleaner, more polished women. He shrugged, the motion deceptively casual. Because you can still smile when everything's falling apart, he said. That matters. I laughed, half in disbelief. You a rich man get tired? He put an arm around my waist and answered in a voice that was flat and familiar. Sometimes I'm tired of fighting. Sometimes my hands hurt from doing what I do. The admission made me flinch. He chuckled and tightened his hold. His breath was warm at my ear. But when I come home, my hands are only for holding you. Was that a promise? Or a warning? He kept his word, and the line between the two blurred faster than I expected. One night a car pulled up outside my dad's shabby duplex. I sprinted to the door to find Ethan standing there, a knife in his hand, my father kneeling and begging on the floor. My father pisses people off. He's reckless, loud, and he gambles like it's oxygen. He's done wrong in 100 small ways, but he didn't deserve that. I screamed and lunged forward. Ethan's arm snapped out. The blade stopped an inch from my father's fingers. For a heartbeat, time froze. His eyes were cold as ice, the kind of cold that doesn't flinch. For a terrifying second, I believed him capable of anything that the man who'd kissed me yesterday might very well kill my father if I didn't stop him. Then he finally spoke, the tone that had been there all along, calm, controlled, absolute. You made her sign the contract, he said. You colluded with those talent sharks to sell her work and cut her out. That's no different from selling your daughter. My father whimpered. His face went the color of old paper. Ethan looked at me, and his voice softened just a fraction. Not loving softer in a way that suggested possession rather than tenderness. I love Harper. I won't let anyone treat her like property. If you stop gambling and you start behaving like a decent man, I'll respect you, he said. If you don't, he tapped the back of my father's hand with the knife's handle. Then this finger is not the only thing I'll take. He slid the blade back into his pocket and stood. For the rest of dinner, he sat politely, poured a drink for my father, and smiled like the man who'd threatened our family didn't exist at all. That night, when my father crawled into my room with humble apologies, I realized the truth I'd been dodging. Marrying Ethan hadn't been an exchange of vows, so much as a move onto a chessboard with pieces I didn't understand. And while his protection felt like shelter, it also felt like a cage with a lock only he could open. I ran to his side anyway, because even the cage felt safer than whatever came before. But the line between love and control was murky, and sometimes the person who protected you was the same person who issued the warning. When Ethan came to meet my family, he didn't bring flowers or wine. He brought 2 black SUVs trunks stuffed with boxes wrapped in silver foil, parked from the curb all the way up our narrow driveway. And one of them, I realized, was filled entirely with gifts for my father. Dad's eyes lit up like Christmas. He grinned, rubbing his palms together, pretending to be humble as he counted the envelopes stacked neatly inside a lacquered box. His voice dripped sugar. Then, before he could say thank you, Ethan slipped his hand into his jacket pocket and pulled out a knife, a slim, polished blade, flashing cold under the porch light. The air froze. My father's grin collapsed, his face draining to ash. I hadn't noticed before, but under Ethan's sleeve was a tattoo, faint, geometric, running up the side of his arm. The kind of mark that whispered power in all the wrong ways. My mother used to say, Your dad fears only one kind of man, the ones who live by rules outside the law. And now I was realizing I'd fallen in love with one of them. Ethan's hand shot out, gripping my father's wrist. The knife spun once in his other hand, then thunk, lodged into the table an inch from Dad's smallest finger. My father flinched so hard, the tear leg screeched against the floor. Ethan spoke quietly, every word calm and deliberate, which somehow made it worse.
"I love Harper," he said. "I wasn't going to do this. But you partnered with bottom feeders who tricked her into a predatory contract. You call that being a father? You sold your daughter." I froze. When I'd hesitated to sign that exploitative deal, Dad had been the one pushing me every day. I thought he was being hounded by debt collectors again. I never guessed he was earning a commission on my misery. Anger flared in me so fast I almost shouted. Ethan's arm came around my waist before I could move. His voice brushed my ear like cold silk. "Let me be the bad guy tonight." That single sentence made my whole body go still. He turned back to my father, his tone suddenly polite again, too polite. "You brought Harper into this world, and for that, I'm grateful. But stop treating her like collateral. You want forgiveness? Start by acting like a man." Then he leaned closer, voice low, knife still gleaming on the table. "If I ever hear that you've gambled again, I'll keep this finger as a souvenir." The blade caught the kitchen light, slicing it into shards across the wall. My father nearly collapsed into his chair. And Ethan, that same man, slid the knife back into his pocket, buttoned his jacket, and smiled. At dinner, he poured my dad a drink as though nothing had happened. The same hands that had just threatened him now handled the bottle with quiet elegance. I watched, unable to tell if I was sitting beside a savior or a monster, or maybe both. Later that night, I was drifting half asleep when I heard soft knocking. Dad's voice whispered through the door, hushed and urgent. "Pack your things, honey. We're leaving. The debt's gone. He's paid it off. There's no reason to stay with that man." I looked at him for a long second before I answered. "You were quick to sell me," I said flatly. "Why hesitate now?" He winced. "Those people tricked me, Harper. I didn't know what I was signing." "Don't," I cut him off. "Where would we even go? To another city, so you can gamble again? You think he won't find us?" I closed the door. The latch clicked. His footsteps faded down the hall, uneven, like a drunk walking away from the truth. Sometime after midnight, I felt a shadow press against my back, the weight of a body sliding into bed behind me. A cool mint scent filled the dark, and a deep voice murmured against my neck. "I gave you a chance to run." His arm wrapped around my waist, tightening just enough to make me still. "But now," he whispered, his breath ghosting over my skin, "if you try to run again, you won't get far." A shiver crawled up my spine. In the dark, his eyes glinted faintly, not angry, not wild, but certain. The kind of certainty that told me this wasn't a threat he'd ever need to repeat. Ethan Reed didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He never really gave me a choice, only the illusion of one. And as I lay there in his arms, half terrified, half addicted to the safety that came with his danger, I realized something far scarier than his knife. I wasn't sure anymore whether I wanted to escape. After the wedding, I moved into Ethan's mansion on the western edge of Los Angeles. The place was enormous. You could walk from the living room to the garden and forget what you went out there for. The swimming pool alone could host an entire wrap party. On my first day there, the housekeeper handed me a printed guide to the property. Spa, yoga studio, private theater, wine cellar, even a greenhouse. It was ridiculous, and yet, with all that luxury, I had nothing to do. Every morning I'd wake up, have breakfast, stroll around the garden, and wait for Ethan to come home. The life of the rich, beautiful, comfortable, and quietly suffocating. I'd quit streaming after we married. I told myself I didn't miss it, that I'd never again have to fake a smile for strangers tossing tips in chat.
But after 3 months of eating, sleeping, and watching koi fish, I started craving something, anything that felt like purpose. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed addicted to me. If he wasn't at work, he was beside me. If he wasn't touching me, he was watching me. One afternoon, I was lying with my head on his lap, flipping through a paperback romance novel I'd read 5 times already. Without thinking, I said, "This story? I love it so much. If it ever got made into a TV series, I'd totally play the lead." It was a joke, the kind of throwaway thing you say when you're half bored, half dreaming. But Ethan tilted his head, studying me. "You like it that much?" "Yeah. The main guy is this stoic, untouchable type. Arrogant but gentle underneath. Total fantasy material." He didn't answer. He just pulled out his phone, sent a message, and said nothing else. 3 days later, his assistant emailed me. "The rights to Beneath the Winter Sky have been purchased. Mr. Reed would like to know if you'd consider auditioning for the female lead." I nearly dropped my coffee. Who buys an entire script because of a casual comment? I laughed and threw my arms around him. "All right, Mr. Reed. You win. I'll do it for fun. But you better find someone good to play opposite me." His fingers brushed my hair. "I'll find the one who fits you best," he said. I should have known better than to take that at face value, because when I got the cast list, the name of my co-star, my breath caught. Noah Hark, my first love. And now, one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Years ago, back in college, we'd both been broke, sharing ramen and dreams under flickering dorm lights. He was the first boy to ever hold my hand, the first to make me believe in something better than survival. Then my father's debts swallowed me whole. Noah got his big break, and when the industry demanded a spotless image, he cut me loose without a backward glance. I'd cried for weeks, swore I'd never let a man decide my worth again. And yet here I was, cast opposite him, in a film my husband produced. When I saw the words, "Lead actor Noah Park" on the board, something in my chest twisted. Just colleagues now, I told myself. Just strangers who remember the same ghosts. But fate had other plans. The first table read was in a studio downtown. Ethan insisted on driving me there himself. As soon as we walked in, the crew started whispering, "Is that Ethan Reed? The CEO himself? I heard he dropped 7 figures just to fund his wife's project. Man, love really does make rich people crazy." I smiled tightly and pretended not to hear. Noah was already inside, bent over his script, sunlight cutting sharp angles across his face. Time had only refined him. He looked older, colder, almost too perfect. When he looked up and saw me, his expression didn't change much. Just a small smile, the kind that used to undo me. "Harper," he said, voice soft, polite. "Long time." I forced a grin. "Mr. Park. Big fan." Then, without missing a beat, he added, "Hello, ex-girlfriend." The room went dead silent. Even the assistant director stopped flipping pages. Ethan's hand, resting casually on the back of my chair, went rigid. When I glanced up at him, his expression was calm, too calm. His eyes, however, were glacial. I could almost hear the tension hum in the air. The first storm in my marriage had finally arrived. Ethan had planned to drop me off at the studio and leave for his meetings, but after seeing Noah, that plan evaporated. He dragged a chair right next to the director's monitor, folded his arms, and stayed put.
"Director Collins,"
he said flatly,
"I'll say this once more. Any romantic scenes, if there's a body double, use one. If not, film it as an illusion. No physical contact."
The director nearly dropped his clipboard. "Yes, Mr. Reed. Of course. Of course." Who was going to argue with the man writing the checks? I wanted to sink into the floor. Later, when the director stepped aside, I asked quietly, "Why Noah, though?" "He's too big for a low-budget web film." "Because he volunteered," the director replied, half whispering. "Said he'd done similar roles before.
Thought he'd fit your character perfectly. I groaned. And you just said yes? He shrugged helplessly. It's Noah Park. No one says no to him. Great. Just great. That night, I cleaned out my social media, deleted old chaotic posts, old rants, old heartbreaks. Changed my bio to, "Don't bother searching. I've been broken long before you found me." If the internet was going to tear me apart again, at least I'd look self-aware while it happened. Haley Quinn, our second female lead, showed up the next morning, short black top, low-rise jeans, confidence for days. Rumor said she was talented, but too proud to play the Hollywood game. Too many men had tried to sponsor her, and she'd told them all where to shove it. When she approached me, she gave a polite smile. "You're the lead, right?" I nodded. Her gaze flicked toward Ethan, who was pouring me water like an attentive husband. "That your assistant?" I almost laughed. Her eyes widened for half a second, then softened into something like admiration. "Well, lucky you." From that day on, the woman everyone called Ice Queen melted whenever she talked to me. Maybe she liked that I wasn't another pretty liar, or maybe she just liked seeing me stand next to a man like Ethan and still smile like I belonged there. Haley started teaching me everything she could how to breathe through emotions, how to cry without looking staged, how to mean my lines. And she was good. Brilliant, even. When the camera rolled, she transformed from a quiet, awkward girl into a ruthless princess with fire in her eyes. I admired her genuinely. Noah joined us for rehearsals. He'd come in early, calm and collected, running lines like he'd never left my life. Ethan began showing up early too. He'd sit off to the side, reading the male parts from the background while I practiced. More often than not, he'd get sleepy mid-scene, leaning his head on my shoulder, murmuring the lines half asleep. Once, Noah stopped and stared at him for a long second, then handed him a travel pillow. "Here," Noah said dryly. "Sleep properly next time." Ethan just smirked, wrapped the pillow around his neck, and leaned right back onto my shoulder. By day, Ethan looked half-conscious, barely interested in the movie, but at night, he'd hold me close, voice rough with something between jealousy and longing. "You say things to him you've never said to me," he murmured once, brushing his thumb against my lips. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Then came that scene, the one where my character breaks down, asks if the man she loves ever truly cared, and he kisses her in silence. It was scheduled for midnight. The air on set felt heavy, electric. We'd agreed. No real kiss, just an illusion, an angle, a trick of lighting. But when the cameras rolled and I looked up at Noah, tears blurring my vision, I forgot to breathe. "Did you ever love me?" I whispered. He stared for a long, painful moment, then leaned in, brushed his lips against mine, and improvised. "Why don't you tell me?" The director gasped, clapped his hands. "That was perfect! Perfect! Keep rolling!" Ethan exploded. "Cut!" he shouted, voice echoing through the soundstage. Everyone froze. Noah just smiled faintly, eyes still on me. "What's wrong, Mr. Reed?" "Didn't like the take. I can do it again." Ethan was already standing. You were supposed to fake it. "It was a reflex," Noah said, utterly unbothered. "Happens. We're actors. Sometimes we forget the line between real and not." He glanced back at me with a glimmer of something unreadable. "Right, Harper?" I didn't move, didn't blink, because for the first time since the night I kissed Ethan, I hadn't felt sick, not even a little. I couldn't get into character that day, no matter how many times we tried. I just froze. The director finally called it off early. "We'll pick it up tomorrow," he said, glancing nervously between me and Ethan, who hadn't moved from his chair once. Ethan noticed my silence long before we left the studio. On the drive back, instead of taking the freeway, he turned off toward the coast. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere quieter," he said. "You need a break." He drove us to a small historic town along the Pacific cobblestone streets. Old lanterns strung above the river that wound through the center.
When night fell, the whole town shimmered in gold. We stopped by the bridge where people were setting paper lanterns afloat. For a moment it almost felt peaceful, until he finally asked, voice low, "So when he kissed you today, and you didn't flinch, did you like it?" The question landed like a blade. I turned toward the window, watching the lights blur. I don't know. It was the truth, or at least the part of it I could admit. Noah was my first love. Back in college, we'd had nothing. Not money, not comfort. Just each other in a cheap apartment that smelled like burnt ramen. We never even kissed. The most intimate thing we'd done was hold each other on nights when the world felt too big. He'd promised to make something of himself first, to be someone who could take care of me. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides both pain and memory, because she believed it. She used to say, "You can hold hands with someone you don't love. You can fake a hug. But a kiss? That's the one thing the heart can't fake. It always knows who it belongs to." I stared at him, half laughing, half in disbelief. "Dad, that's way too poetic for you." He grinned, raising his bottle. "Didn't come from me. Came from your mom. The day she agreed to date me, I asked her, 'Why me? I'm not rich. I'm not handsome. I'm definitely not the best option.' She kissed me once, right here." He tapped his chest, over his heart, and said, "This part says yes, and it never lies." That night, as I lay beside Ethan, his arm draped over me, I thought about those words about truth and love, and the tiny space inside us that refuses to lie. Maybe Mom was right all along. Maybe the heart doesn't need proof. It just needs the right person to stop pretending for. Finn Y. The first time I ever saw Harper Lynn was on a late-night live stream. She was crying. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes red and puffy, her hands trembling as she gripped the mic. "I owe $500,000. My dad's hiding from debt collectors. I'm blacklisted, broke, and my boyfriend just dumped me." But before the tears could even dry, her tone flipped, bright, teasing, alive. "Wow. Thank you, Leo, for the fireworks combo. You're the sweetest, handsomest man ever." I remember laughing out loud. A woman who could talk about despair and, 3 seconds later, laugh with the world that wasn't fake. That was survival. Someone in the chat wrote, "I'm still in college, but I want to donate a little to help you." Harper instantly replied, "A college girl? Nope, don't even think about it. I only take money from grown men. Anyone else, I block." That was the moment I knew she wasn't ordinary. A streamer who turned down donations and scared off fans? Either crazy or real. So I dug deeper. And yes, her debt was real. Her struggle was real. But she still smiled, as if the world hadn't broken her yet. And somehow that smile made me feel alive again. Every night after work, I'd play her stream in the background. My office was always silent, just the hum of my computer and the smell of cold coffee. But her voice filled the space with color. She was loud, messy, chaotic, everything my life wasn't. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop listening. At first, I donated a little, then a little more. Eventually, my name, Ethan Reed, climbed to the top of her leaderboard. "Thank you, Mr. Reed, our most generous boss tonight." She said it playfully, but my heart skipped all the same. I never commented, never texted, just listened. If she didn't stream, I'd replay old videos because, without her voice, the house felt empty. Until one night, I realized I wanted to see her in person. Even thinking it felt ridiculous, but hesitation was never my style. So I messaged her, "Can we meet?" Her reply was short and sharp. "Company policy, no meeting fans. Sorry." Top-rank donor rejected, that was new. And yet, that rejection only made me want to know her more. The next day, I bought her agency. She was 10 minutes late to our first meeting. Showed up in a baggy t-shirt, denim shorts, messy hair, and broken flip-flops. "Sorry," she said, laughing. My shoe betrayed me. Not exactly the glamorous influencer I'd imagined, but her eyes, they were impossible to look away from. When I drove her home that night, she talked nonstop about her father, her debts, a new instant noodle flavor she loved, trivial, random things, but I couldn't stop smiling. And somewhere between her laughter and her chaos, I thought maybe having a bit of that energy in my life wouldn't be so bad. So I said it, almost without thinking. Let's get married. The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. But she didn't even flinch. She tilted her head, grinning. Sure, but we should test the chemistry first. Before I could ask what she meant, she leaned in to kiss me, and then promptly gagged. She actually threw up. I froze, horrified. After that, I didn't dare try again. 2 days later, my phone rang. Hey, hubby, she chirped. I'm all packed. Which mansion is yours? I stared at the screen, laughing like an idiot. Every time I thought I'd figured her out, she surprised me again, and from that day on, I knew I was completely gone for her. Months later, she asked me, "Do you know why you got so angry when Noah kissed me?" I answered honestly, because I was jealous. She giggled, resting her head on my shoulder. You're the most stubborn man I've ever met. When I kissed you and puked, you didn't try again for months. You looked miserable, I said quietly. I didn't want to push you. Her voice softened. Maybe it's because I didn't love you yet. Do you now? I asked. She smiled. Let's find out. So I kissed her, and 1 second later, I pulled back in horror. You don't love me anymore? She clutched her stomach, grimacing. No, I think I'm gonna throw up for real. You'd better drive me to the hospital. The test results came back. Pregnant. For a moment, I just stood there, blank, silent, then burst out laughing. Turns out, my bad luck charm had become my miracle. That night, as she slept beside me, I brushed a hand over her hair and whispered, You really are my good luck, Harper, even when you make me lose my mind. She stirred, half asleep, murmuring, Don't flatter yourself, Mr. Reed. I'm everyone's good luck. I smiled. Maybe so, but she'd always be mine. But when my father's debt spiraled out of control and I started drowning, he'd vanished clean, cold, decisive. The next time I saw him, he acted like I was a stain he couldn't scrub off fast enough. That kind of pain stays under your skin, even when it fades. So when I looked at him now, older, polished, unreachable, all I felt was distance. No warmth, no hate, just space. Too much space to ever fill again. We stood on the bridge, watching the lanterns drift away on the dark river. The wind picked up, tugging strands of my hair across my face. Ethan's hand rested on the railing, fingers flexing and relaxing, as though he were holding back words. For the first time that night, I felt lighter. I didn't know what I felt for Ethan. Admiration? Fear? Fascination? But whatever I'd once felt for Noah, it was gone. When I thought about that kiss, I realized something. My body hadn't recoiled, but my heart still had. The nausea wasn't physical anymore. It was emotional, a quiet rejection I couldn't explain. I reached over, pinched Ethan's cheek gently. Don't worry, I said. I don't like him. He blinked, startled. What? I said, I don't like him. He stared, expression blank for a moment, then huffed out a small laugh. You don't like lantern festivals, huh? Fine, let's go to the mall, buy you something instead. I'm talking about your question in the car, I said, rolling my eyes. He draped an arm around my shoulder. Then let's buy 2 bags. I smiled despite myself. That was Ethan, always translating emotion into action, love into possessions, jealousy into jokes. That night, when we got back home, he fell asleep almost instantly, his arm heavy around my waist. I waited until his breathing evened out, then gently slipped from under his arm. He stirred, eyes half closed, voice hoarse from sleep. He caught my wrist. Where are you going, baby? Just thirsty, I whispered, getting some water. He loosened his grip, murmured something against the pillow. Next time, he mumbled. I'm adding a clause to your contract. No kissing your co-stars. I froze mid-step, heart tightening in a way I couldn't name. Because somewhere between jealousy and fear, between love and ownership. I realized he wasn't joking. The film hadn't even premiered yet, and social media had already lost its mind. By 9 a.m., Twitter and TikTok were on fire. Noah Park in low budget series washed up influencer as lead. The comments read like a riot. Wait, the Noah Park? In a web series?
Did he lose a bet or something? Who's the girl? Never seen her before. Oh, that's Harper Lynn, the ex-dancer from Twitch. Found her clips. Yikes. Is she the producer's girlfriend or what? Producer is her boyfriend. Nepo wife alert. I stared at the feed, numb. What could I even say? They weren't wrong. I was sleeping with the producer. Except that producer also happened to be my husband. Ethan didn't waste a second. By afternoon, his legal team was already drafting cease and desist letters, gathering evidence, and issuing statements under Reed Entertainment Group's name. All defamatory comments, false rumors, and AI-generated media involving Ms. Lynn or Mr. Park will be pursued to the fullest extent of the law. At the same time, Noah tweeted from his verified account, "It's my first time doing a TV project. Please focus on the work, not the gossip." But of course, that only poured gasoline on the fire. Blink twice if you're being held hostage, Noah. Change your profile pic if she's blackmailing you. Harper Lynn really is her character. Sold herself for fame. Leaks out, $1 per view. Within hours, men in dark corners of the internet started paying to watch fabricated filth. Ethan went straight to the LAPD's cybercrime division. But when I checked the comments out of morbid curiosity, one username stopped me cold. @Haley_Quinn official. You idiots know nothing. Whoever spreads this trash should try surviving on 3 meals a week. You post fakes, I report fakes. Keep going. I've got time. I choked on my water. Haley, my icy co-star with 200,000 followers, was personally fighting antis online with her main account. I could already imagine the gossip blog slicing up her words. Desperate actress to Finn's sugar baby lead. Toxic loyalty or paid protection. That night, I took her out for dinner, partly to thank her, partly to stop her from torching her own reputation. She barely looked up from her phone, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm not the vengeful type," she muttered. "I just believe in instant karma." I couldn't help but laugh. "Haley, we don't have enough fans to win this war. Let it go." She looked up, eyes tired but still sharp. "Doesn't matter. I'm quitting next year anyway." "What?" I blinked. "But you love acting." She handed me her phone. I scrolled through the text. Explicit, threatening, relentless. My stomach twisted. "When I'm out of this business," she said calmly, "I'll sue him. All of it. He won't walk free." I squeezed her hand. "Send me the proof. I'll find someone who can help." She shook her head. "Don't. You're finally getting recognition. You don't need this mess. But thanks for believing me." On the way home, I couldn't shake her words. I'd lied to her once. About Ethan. Maybe it was time to tell the truth. "Haley," I said, stopping by the curb as my driver pulled up. "There's something I should have told you earlier. My boyfriend, he's not crew." Her brow arched. "What is he then? Director?" "No," she frowned. "Please don't say produce." "Close," I admitted. "He owns the production company." Her mouth dropped open. "You're serious?" Before I could answer, a black Maybach glided to the curb. Ethan stepped out, white shirt, sleeves rolled, jacket draped over one arm. He looked every inch the billionaire people love to hate. "What are you two talking about?" he asked evenly. Haley's gaze darted between us, her eyes bright with something raw, anger, maybe hurt. "So it's true?" she whispered. "You're that kind of relationship, or is it real?" Before I could speak, Ethan's hand found my waist, pulling me close. He leaned down and kissed me, not showy, not long, but firm enough that the world blurred out. When he pulled back, his voice was calm, steady. "Of course it's real," he said. Then, holding up my hand, he added, "We're married." Under the streetlights, the platinum rings sparkled between his fingers. Haley's shoulders dropped. "Good," she said quietly, almost smiling. "Because I've been fighting your trolls all day. Would have been a waste otherwise." I laughed, breathless. Ethan looked down at me, lips curling just slightly. But it wasn't his smile that shook me. It was the fact that during that kiss I hadn't felt nauseous, not even close. He leaned closer, voice a whisper against my ear. "So," he murmured, "what happened to that special ability of yours?" I turned to look at him.
heart racing so hard it hurt. I didn't answer, but deep down I already knew the truth. The gift my mother once spoke of, the one that made me sick when love wasn't real, had just stopped working. Or maybe, for the first time, it had finally found someone it couldn't reject. When Ethan finally realized I no longer resisted his kiss, something shifted in his eyes, deeper, darker, and burning like a restrained fire finally breaking free. We had barely stepped through the door when he pulled me back. One swift motion, my coat half off, his breath already against my skin. "Harper," he whispered, voice low, rough at the edges. "I've waited a long time for this." His lips found mine, urgent, desperate, trembling not from lust, but from fear. Fear that if he let go, I'd slip away again. The world around us blurred. Every sound, every shadow dissolved until there was nothing left but the ragged rhythm of our breathing. His heartbeat thudded against mine, wild and uneven, and for once I couldn't tell whose pulse belonged to whom. Then the phone rang, a shrill, slicing tone that shattered the fragile quiet. Ethan froze, his jaw tightening. He reached into my pocket, pulled out the phone before I could protest, and pressed speaker. "Hey, Harper, are you okay? Don't let the rumors online get to you." Noah's voice. Ethan's tone turned calm, too calm. "Looking for my wife, Noah?" A pause. "She's a little busy right now, helping me pick out shirts, measuring my wrist." The line went silent. Ethan tilted his head, eyes cold but amused. "Oh, right. She's also checking my pulse." And then he ended the call one clean tap. No hesitation, no guilt, just finality. He switched off the phone, placed it on the table, and looked at me. The fire in his eyes hadn't faded, if anything. It had sharpened, possessive, wounded, fierce. "No one's going to interrupt us again," he murmured. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a promise or a warning. Then, softer, almost a plea. "Don't run from me anymore, Harper, because even if you do, I'll still find you." I stood frozen, every nerve screaming, not in fear, not entirely. My heart was pounding, too loud, too real. For the first time, I couldn't tell whether I was terrified of him or of how much I was starting to want him. Because somewhere between defiance and surrender, between danger and desire, I finally understood Ethan Reed didn't just scare me. He moved me, and that was far more dangerous. When I woke up the next morning, every muscle in my body ached. Ethan was gone. My phone lit up with over a dozen missed calls, 5 from Haley. Before I could dial her back, she called again. "Harper! Finally! It's almost 11. You've got to check Twitter. It's insane. Ethan Reed is trending. Turns out your husband's not just a producer. He's the Reed Group heir." "You never said he was that Reed." I froze, then opened my feed. The top 3 worldwide trends were all about me. Of course, mixed in with a fascination were the usual sneers. Still a sugar baby. Married or not, she used her man's money. Sure, must have been love for luxury cars. Haley replied from her main account in seconds. What, husbands can't invest in their wives now? Then Ethan himself tweeted from his verified profile. Pursued her for years, the universe knows. The internet exploded again. And just when I thought it couldn't get any wilder, Ethan posted a legal statement under Reed Entertainment Group. "To those spreading false rumors, I have lawyers. I have time. I will find you." When the show finally aired, something strange happened. People didn't hate me. Sure, my acting wasn't Oscar-worthy, but I wasn't terrible either. And someone dug up my old live streams where I'd admitted dancing online was how I paid off my father's gambling debt. That changed everything. I never hated Harper Lynn. She's actually kind of inspiring. Same. She didn't scam anyone, she worked for it. Next life, can I have her face and body, please? Haley's performance also blew everyone away. Wait, she's the one from that old indie movie. I knew I recognized her. Phenomenal acting. Spot on with the novel's version. Didn't she used to get bad press for being cold? Girl deserves better. Riding the wave of goodwill, I released Haley's story, the harassment, the threats, the powerful man who tried to break her. And this time, with Ethan backing the case, the police moved fast. They found other victims. By the end of the month, that man was behind bars sewing prison uniforms. After the show wrapped, I got an offer for a new drama, a major S-tier project. Ethan smiled and said, "Take it if you want."
I'll just tag along to keep an eye on you. But I shook my head. I'd already lived the dream once. That was enough. I recommended Haley instead.
She blinked. Harper, you've done too much for me already.
You still have to audition like everyone else, I said, laughing. I just slipped your reel to the director. He said he's intrigued. Go kill it. She did. Her show went viral, scripts flooded in, and soon she barely had time to grab coffee with me. As for me, I went back to school, studying choreography and modern dance. For once, I wanted something that was mine alone. One evening, over dinner, Ethan asked, "So, Miss Superpower, ever figure out how your little gift works?" I laughed. Still testing the theory. Maybe I should ask my dad. That weekend, I visited him. He was nursing a cheap beer and half watching a baseball game when I asked, "Dad, when I kiss someone and feel sick, is that really some kind of sixth sense?" He chuckled. "Sweetheart, that's not a power. That's anxiety. Remember when you used to puke after every failed test? Your mom would chase you around with a broom till you stopped crying. Once you toughened up, it went away." I frowned. Then why did Mom call it a gift? She said kissing tells you if someone truly loves you.